yourself on the path to the most beautiful skin of your life. Trust me, it's worth it.
This special offer is not available anywhere else, so don't delay. Scan the code, go to meaningfulbeauty.com, or call the number on your screen now.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. On the first day of his Middle East trip, President Trump secures $600 billion in investment from Saudi Arabia. What we know about this economic agreement. The White House slashes a key tariff on Chinese goods, how this is going to impact small packages shipped to the U.S. The Trump administration is cutting another $450 million in funding to Harvard, accusing the university of ignoring anti-Semitic harassment. The school is now suing. Food standards regulations could align between the United States and the United Kingdom. In the past, this has been a key sticking point for U.S. meat exports to Britain, but soon this could be overcome. House Republicans unveil a budget proposal. It cuts Medicaid to fund tax cuts, but there's dissent from both sides of the aisle. We'll break down the healthcare and political arguments in this debate. And the Texas legislature passes resolutions today, recognizing the founding of the spiritual group Falun Dafa.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
It is the first time that President Donald Trump is visiting Saudi Arabia during his second term in office, and now he's participating in a Saudi state dinner. Take a look. All right. Seems that we may not have that footage for now. We're going to move on. President Trump was speaking in Saudi Arabia today, announces that the U.S. will be lifting all sanctions on Syria to give the new regime a new chance. This comes as the president calls for broader peace in the Middle East. And we've got, once again, live in studio, NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, good to see you. Tell us more about all of this.
Sure. So President Trump was just speaking this morning at an investment forum in Saudi Arabia after meeting with the Saudi Crown Prince. And during his speech, he announced that the U.S. would now be lifting its sanctions against the Syrian government, which was actually put in place against the last Syrian regime, the Assad regime. And President Trump says that's to give the new government there, the new regime there, a chance of success. Watch.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness. The sanctions were brutal and crippling and served as an important function, nevertheless, at the time. But now it's their time to shine. It's their time to shine. We're taking them all off.
And furthermore, President Trump says Syria has had a share of travesty, killing, and war in many years during the Civil War and the recovery from it, which was a struggling process. And President Trump says that's why his administration is now trying to restore relations and normalize relations between the U.S. and Syria. And meanwhile, we know that after 14 years of civil war, the country has really struggled both economically and also socially, and of course, among its people in different conflicts. And Assad regime was actually overthrown last year in December under the previous Biden administration. And now, of course, when Trump took office, now it's a different situation. And the Trump administration says that they're hopeful that this will encourage more, of course, communication between both countries, as well as actually facilitate economic development as well in the region.
Okay, Iris, the president here, he also had a pretty strong message for Iran. Tell us more about that message.
Sure. So during his speech, President Trump tried to extend this olive branch to Iran, saying that we do want to strike a deal with you over your country's nuclear program. Of course, we know that Trump has been urging Iran to really downgrade its nuclear program, saying that we want you to be a great country, but we cannot allow you to have a nuclear weapon. But he also gave this stern warning to Iran, saying that the talks have a time limit.
Yet I'm here today not merely to condemn the past chaos of Iran's leaders, but to offer them a new path. But they cannot have a nuclear weapon. This is an offer that will not last forever. The time is right now for them to choose.
And now President Trump is also urging the larger Middle East region, different leaders in the region, to put down their differences and really honor their history and origin, highlighting that a lot of them actually have very deep origin in faith and spirituality, urging them to really come together to create a more prosperous region. Watch.
Put aside your differences and focus on the interests that unite you, then all of humanity will soon be amazed at what they will see right here in this geographic center of the world, it really is, it's like a center of the world, and the spiritual heart of its greatest faiths.
And of course, we know that this is Trump's first international trip. This is the first planned one aside from his travel to Rome for the Pope's funeral. But this highlights really the importance for the Trump administration and really strengthening relations with these Arab countries, especially as they're trying to also deepen economic ties.
Absolutely. So what else has the president touched on during this trip so far in Saudi Arabia?
Sure. So this trip's main focus is to highlight economic cooperation and deepen that. We know that aside from Saudi Arabia from today, he's also going to set to travel to, for example, the UAE as well as Qatar during the next days of this week. And he's trying to really secure more investments from these countries. Today, we know that he has secured a $600 billion commitment from Saudi Arabia to invest in the U.S., which also includes a large defense partnership valued at about $140 billion. So that's some major step forward between the two countries when it comes to economic cooperation. And Trump is also actually highlighting the ties between the two countries, saying how like 8 years ago, this was also his first international trip as his first term in president. And he says that things have changed a lot here, more skyscrapers, more high-rise buildings here he's seeing in Saudi Arabia. And he's also urging actually Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords, which is to normalize their relations with Israel. Of course, we have heard the Saudi government saying before that they're not considering that, but it remains to be seen if this tie between the Crown Prince and President Trump, if apparently was very strong, would actually facilitate that in that direction.
Yeah, hard to believe sometimes that first trip you mentioned there was already 8 years ago, right. Nearly a decade. And the president also joking that maybe that investment could go up to $1 trillion. We'll see how that goes. But Iris, thank you so much. And seems we're matching today.
This was not planned.
Yeah, I promise, not planned, but great minds think alike.
Of course.
All right, Iris, thank you.
Of course.
And moving on, President Trump said that Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be attending the Russian-Ukrainian talks in Turkey this week. Now, Ukrainian President Zelensky is saying that he's ready to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Putin has previously said that Russia was ready for direct talks in Turkey. And some major trade news now. The White House is rolling back a key tariff on China. A White House executive said that the U.S. would cut the de minimis tariff on Chinese shipments to 54% from 120%. De minimis tariffs relate to small packages from China with a value under $800. A flat $100 fee per package will remain in place and takes effect starting tomorrow. The White House also scrapped a planned $200 hike set to take effect on June 1st. The move could ease cost pressures for platforms like Temu and Shein, which compete with U.S. retailers by shipping cheap goods directly from China. Some good news from the Labor Department. The latest report shows inflation cooled for the third straight month in April. Consumer prices rose 2.3% in April from a year ago, the lowest annual inflation reading since 2021. Grocery prices fell 0.4%. The figure was pulled down in part by a big 12.7% drop in the price of eggs. The government said it was the biggest decline in food costs at home since September 2020. The Consumer Price Index showed the average price for a dozen grade A eggs dropped to around $5. The price was at a record $6.23 per dozen. The inflation report also suggests the tariffs have not yet impacted the prices of many items. House lawmakers are back in Washington today ahead of a series of high-stakes committee votes this week. The votes are key hurdles that Republicans must clear in order to pass a tax and spending cuts package that they hope to do so by Memorial Day. Committees must advance pieces of the legislation before they can be put together into one bill. Meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson is working to stave off a revolt from any one faction of his conference that could tank this GOP agenda. Contentious issues, including cuts to Medicaid and food stamps, are at play here. And another point of contention, updating the 2017 deduction cap on state and local taxes. Republicans have unveiled their long-awaited multi-trillion-dollar tax proposal. President Trump is calling it the One Big Beautiful Bill. Here's NTD's Daniel Monahan.
Republicans say the bill would save families around $1,700 a year and boost take-home pay for households with 2 children by up to $5,000. It locks in the lower tax rates from the 2017 Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, set to expire in 2025, making them permanent. It expands the child tax credit to $2,500 from $1,000 until 2029 and keeps it at $2,000 after that. The bill raises the estate tax exemption from $14 million to $15 million and exempts taxes on some tipped income and overtime pay. It also exempts taxes on interest payments on loans for domestic vehicles. Up to $5,000 for contributions to scholarship funds for private schools would also be exempt. The bill also allows taxpayers to deduct up to $30,000 for state and local tax payments, up from $10,000 now, and creates a new $4,000 deduction for seniors. Parents would be able to contribute up to $5,000 a year tax-free into special savings accounts for their children, usable for school, housing, or other costs when they reach adulthood. There's also support for businesses offering paid family and medical leave via tax credits. The bill also makes the 23% small business deduction permanent, supports 100% expensing for factories, and repeals the IRS gig worker reporting rule. Overall, the bill proposes $4 trillion in tax cuts and $1.5 trillion in spending cuts over 10 years, while also raising the borrowing limit by $4 trillion. Congressman Jason Smith described the bill as pro-family, pro-worker, speaking on Fox News.
Making permanent the expiring provisions of Trump's successful 2017 tax cuts will provide more certainty for small businesses. For example, the small business deduction affects 30 million small businesses. And right now, they don't know if their tax rate was going to be 43.4%, around 25%.
Despite early discussions, the final bill does not raise taxes on wealthy individuals or introduce a millionaire's tax.
It's not in this bill. All the tax rates are staying the same as what they currently are. What is in this bill is delivering for working class Americans. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, tax relief for seniors.
The bill raises taxes on the biggest university endowments from 1.4% to 21%.
And we're actually going after those elite universities, special interest, and making them held accountable.
The bill ends tax credits for illegal immigrants, and economists warn that if the Trump-era tax cuts aren't extended, nearly two-thirds of taxpayers could see higher taxes in 2026. One item is missing: the president's promise to eliminate taxes on Social Security benefits. However, Representative Thomas Massey has introduced separate legislation to do just that. The Ways and Means Committee is scheduled to mark up the bill May 13th. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the legislative process has exceeded expectations, adding that the administration's full economic plan on trade, tax, and regulation could be complete by the end of the year. With Republican control of both chambers in the White House, the bill could pass through budget reconciliation, needing only a simple majority in the Senate. The tax package comes as the federal government reported a $258 billion budget surplus in April, up 23% from a year ago. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is with President Trump on that visit to the Middle East. This is the president's first major international trip of his second term. Bessent spoke at the Saudi-U.S. Investment Forum in Riyadh today. He said he's optimistic the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that President Trump signed into law during his first term will become permanent. The Treasury Secretary added the Tax Cuts Act would have new features that are very friendly to capital. The Trump administration is terminating another $450 million in grants to Harvard University. Today's announcement comes after the White House pulled $2.2 billion in federal funding last week. The DOJ's Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism claims that Harvard has failed to protect Jewish students. In a statement released today, the group cited what it called, quote, pervasive race discrimination and anti-Semitic harassment plaguing its campus. According to that statement, Jewish students have been, quote, subjected to pervasive insults, physical assault, and intimidation with no meaningful response from Harvard's leadership. The task force also added, quote, Harvard's campus, once a symbol of academic prestige, has become a breeding ground for virtue signaling and discrimination. The Ivy League university is already suing over the administration's decision to cut off grant funding. UnitedHealth Group Chairman Stephen Hemsley is returning to the CEO position, and current CEO Andrew Whitty is stepping down for personal reasons. Hemsley was the company's CEO from 2006 to 2017. Under his leadership, the company grew from a decent-sized health insurance provider to a $400 billion operation. As he takes the CEO role once again, he will also remain the chairman of the company's board of directors. Whitty served as CEO from 2021. The company has seen a string of trouble recently, including the shooting murder of UnitedHealthcare subsidiary CEO Brian Thompson and investigations into company business practices. The company also says it is suspending its annual outlook for 2025 due to more benefit offerings and higher than expected costs for new healthcare enrollees. It says it expects to see growth again in 2026. Coming up next, House Republicans unveil a budget proposal. Now, a key part of it cuts Medicaid to fund tax cuts, but there is dissent from both sides of the aisle. We'll break down both the healthcare and the political arguments when we come back.
I didn't ask to lose my mother or to be abused at 5 years old. I didn't ask to be kicked out of my house with nowhere to go.
I'm so sorry.
I didn't ask for any of this. But I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there. Thanks to their love and support, and to generous people like you, I got what I needed to take control of my life.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Your gift can help reach them when they need it most.
I didn't ask for my parents and my family to disown me. I didn't ask to end up in a homeless shelter. The beauty of it all is that I found Covenant House.
The need is overwhelming, but your monthly support will make sure no young person is ever turned away. Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today. If there's no Covenant House, where would I be today?
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations. Show them they're loved and not alone. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college first-round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating, but I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Welcome back. A major development in immigration enforcement. A federal judge has ruled that the IRS can now share tax data on undocumented immigrants with the Department of Homeland Security.
A major legal win for the Trump administration. A federal judge ruled on Monday the Internal Revenue Service can share tax data of illegal immigrants with the Department of Homeland Security. Judge Dabney Friedrich, appointed by President Trump, dismissed a lawsuit from nonprofit groups seeking to block this data sharing. The judge concluded that the IRS's agreement with the Department of Homeland Security complies with federal law, as it utilizes legally available tools for criminal investigations. DHS Assistant Secretary of Public Affairs Tricia McLaughlin told Fox News on Monday, data sharing is essential to neutralize public safety threats and to, quote, identify what public benefits these aliens are using at taxpayer expense. Fox News reported clergy members and activists protested outside an immigration and customs enforcement facility in Newark, New Jersey on Monday. Demonstrators prayed for the inmates inside the facility and called for their release. According to Fox News, the clergy members from Faith in New Jersey and Faith in Action said they had volunteered to be arrested. Authorities say at least 2 individuals were arrested by Newark police. Speaking to the news outlet, Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin called the protest a, quote, cheap political stunt. Meanwhile, in Florida, state troopers are now licensed by the federal government to arrest undocumented immigrants on their own. Governor Ron DeSantis announced the agreement with ICE on Monday. The agreement gives local law enforcement the ability to carry out certain immigration duties, essentially working like an extension of ICE under federal supervision.
The Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to lift a temporary block on deporting nearly 200 Venezuelan immigrants. The illegal immigrants are detained in Texas. Many of them are alleged members of the Tren de Aragua gang. In a court filing yesterday, the administration argued that the group poses a serious threat while in custody, citing an incident where 23 detainees barricaded themselves, allegedly threatening to take hostages and harm staff. The government says it's using the Alien Enemies Act to expedite removals. It says the detainees have received proper legal notice. Solicitor General D. John Sauer argued the Supreme Court should allow deportations to proceed, especially given the risks posed to detention facility safety. The High Court's decision could shape how federal authorities handle similar national security-related immigration cases going forward. 3 Chinese nationals and a China-based company have been charged for allegedly importing equipment used for making drugs disguised as normal pills into the United States. Federal prosecutors stated that between December 2011 and April 2025, Capsule CN imported pill-making equipment to the United States using deceptive packaging and false shipping details. In the indictment, prosecutors say Capsule CN was aware that drug traffickers could use the equipment to make fake pills laced with controlled substances like fentanyl and methamphetamine. The Justice Department describes them as lethal fake pills. The company used websites, social media sites, and e-commerce platforms to advertise its business. Prosecutors also say that between 2017 and 2022, Capsule CN allegedly shipped more than 21,000 packages to the United States, with 265 of them intercepted by U.S. Customs. The company allegedly received about $6.8 million through a U.S. payment service. Officials are recommending that adults aged 60 and up not receive the chikungunya vaccine. The warning issued by the FDA and CDC follows reports of severe symptoms in older individuals who received the shot. A total of 17 serious cases in vaccinated individuals 62 through 89 years of age have been recorded as of May 7th. 6 of the severe cases were reported in the United States. IXCHIQ is manufactured by Valneva. The vaccine contains a live weakened version of the chikungunya virus. According to the FDA, the jab may cause symptoms similar to those caused by the mosquito-borne viral disease. The CDC says symptoms can include fever, joint pain, headache, muscle pain, joint swelling, and rash. House Republicans are racing for House Speaker Mike Johnson's Memorial Day deadline to present a budget package that President Trump calls that big, beautiful bill. Now, a key part of this proposal has now been revealed, at least $880 billion in cuts to help cover the cost of $4.5 trillion in tax breaks. A majority of those cuts would be coming from Medicaid. Now, this proposal has drawn backlash from both sides of the aisle. And meanwhile, just yesterday, the president also signed an executive order aimed at making prescription drugs more affordable for Americans. We're going to break down both the healthcare and political debate in this whole discussion now. Joining us, we've got Mike Leon, our NTD News contributor and host of the podcast Can We Please Talk, as well as Katie Talento, executive director of the Alliance of Healthcare Sharing Ministries and former White House health advisor to President Trump. Mike, Katie, it's great to have you both on today. This is a pretty big conversation, Katie. So as someone who has this extensive experience in the healthcare sector, what's your reaction to this proposed cutting plan?
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable step to build upon the drug pricing initiatives of the president in the first term. So if we're talking about cutting drug prices in the second term, we have to look at what the unfinished business was in the first term. And the president actually proposed this most favored nation idea that the United States shouldn't pay the worst prices in all the world. They should pay the best prices in all the world. He proposed it, and there was a lot of internal staff wrangling, and it eventually was pulled back before the end of his term. So I'm really excited to see that that's now back on the table.
All right, so let's look for a second at this specific cut that we're seeing in this budget bill proposal. Mike, it's drawing a bit of, or rather a lot of criticism from both sides of the aisle, it would seem. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says that this could amount to people with health care, cutting the amount of people with health care by 8.6 million within the next 10 years. And then Mike, Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley, he's also saying that his own party's proposed Medicaid cuts, they're, quote, morally wrong and politically suicidal. What's your read on this whole strategy?
Yeah, well, first of all, good to see you as always, Fiona. Look, he would say that, right? Because 1.1 million people in his state rely on Medicaid services. And I think people don't understand truly like what Medicaid, obviously outside of providing health services for low income and disabled folks, there's other ancillary services that Medicaid offers. So him writing that, especially as we head into the midterm elections with some key races that are going to be up for grabs, obviously in 25, you're going to have some gubernatorial races. It makes sense for him to write something like that in terms of the political side of it. But let's look at just the services side of it, right? There is some waste, fraud, and abuse. My wife has worked for a few major hospitals in New York and New Jersey. She's been a medical secretary. She's worked in administrative services and medical billing. There is some people that do take advantage of Medicaid services in a myriad of ways. The issue in terms of what this bill outlines in terms of providing clarity on you work 80 hours a month, 20 hours a week, whether it be in a volunteer status or an employed status, and so you can show proof so you can gain these services, citizens being able to use this. I agree with a lot of this and what's being proposed. The issue, as always, Fiona, is the execution part of this, as we've talked about a bunch with respect to executive orders or other things that are coming out of this. And it's because if you look at it, specifically, Democrats are framing it as people will lose coverage. There is some truth in that. The bigger issue will be the administrative part of this, right? You're going to add impact and toll to an already exhaustive process in terms of securing services. When you deal with agencies, you deal with bureaucracy, you deal with red tape, you deal with hours of waiting to call people and to find out information services. I've dealt with it here in Florida, just on the unemployment level. And so when you deal with that, that is a lot of issues that Americans deal with. That's going to be a lot of wait time. That's going to be a lot of time taken away from me actually getting the services I need from this. So that's where it's really going to impact more. When I look at this bill holistically, yeah, there's going to be the politics part of it. And Josh Hawley writing that, obviously he's doing that for the 1.1 million or so constituents in his state that he represents. And I get that. But it's really not only about people losing services. It will be about the burden that this will put on the system overall.
Katie, that's exactly what I want to ask you, these concerns that Mike's bringing up. What's your response to that? Especially, we are hearing criticism saying, you know, low-income Americans, particularly in those rural areas, they're going to face more barriers to maintain coverage. And along the same lines, you know, this bill, it's also requiring these biannual eligibility checks and income verification systems. How are states going to enforce that without causing coverage disruptions?
I think a lot of states have been eager to try to have the authority and the political cover to actually carry out some of these payment integrity and eligibility integrity measures. I will say that this is politically treacherous. You know, you've got something like 1 in 4 Americans that are receiving their insurance coverage through Medicaid. And you're also going to hear a lot of caterwauling from the hospitals, especially the community hospitals, who are going to claim that if there are more uninsured people, even if they're not insured by Medicaid, which, you know, pays some of the lowest rates out there to hospitals, but the hospitals are going to complain that these people are just going to lead to uncompensated care. So I think we are going to hear a lot of noise and friction out in the communities where this is, you know, having to be executed. But there is nothing wrong, of course, with making sure that the law is being followed with respect to eligibility. You know, the Affordable Care Act dramatically expanded the Medicaid program in many states, most states, to childless, working-aged adults. If those adults have other forms of coverage available, it's only proper that the taxpayer not have to pay for their insurance coverage. You know, we're drowning in debt. So, of course, there's always a balance of interests here. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see. I think states that are more inclined in this direction are going to be more aggressive in carrying out these measures, and the states that aren't, they will sort of take their time. So it'll be a continuum throughout the country.
All right. I know Mike's on a bit of a tight time crunch here. So, Mike, I want to ask you this regarding that drug cut executive order. or the pricing cut rather of drugs that President Trump signed yesterday. Some Senate Republicans, they're saying the president's executive order essentially amounts to government price fixing. I think it's interesting to see the president sort of moving away from this traditionally conservative stance when it comes to lowering these drug prices.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback a little bit on what Senator Chuck Grassley said. He said, look, if you just pass my bill actually encapsulates a lot of what the president wants to do with respect to this. Look, the Biden administration ran on lowering prescription drug prices and costs. If you recall, during the campaign stop, he did that stop in Michigan to announce something that was done in terms of prescription cost and lowering costs for seniors in terms of how much they would pay out of pocket for prescription drugs. This is a huge issue. It kind of funnels into the Medicaid part of this. It's kind of why Josh Hawley wrote this op-ed piece, because there is a faction of the moderate Republican base that's still left that is saying, look, they take a hardline stance politically, and then eventually they come around as concessions are made on all of this. So I do think it's interesting, executive orders aside, because executive orders, as we all know, or maybe people don't know, those things can be challenged in court. It still needs to pass the congressional smell test and be enacted into law. So an executive order, as always, we have to take it at face value for what it is that it's trying to tackle, where the pushback will be. But I think right now what you're seeing, at least from folks I've talked to specifically on the House side of this, like they're interested to hear more about the issue and what the president's aims are with this executive order and how it will truly affect their states, because there's a lot of them that are going to be in swing districts that this is going to affect their constituents for sure.
All right, Mike Leon, thank you so much for joining us today. Can't wait to have you on for our next panel. All right, thank you. And Katie, we're going to stay on you for just a second. I want to get your take here, because you were an advisor to President Donald Trump in the past. Is this the type of action you were hoping to see from the president when it comes to trying to lower these drug prices?
It absolutely is. And, after working in this industry for so many years and working on health policy for so many decades, there isn't a measure against the pharmaceutical cartel that I wouldn't support at this point. And they're not the only ones. The shadowy middlemen known as pharmacy benefit managers, the so-called fake charity hospital systems, there are lots of villains, lots of Bond villains in the healthcare industry. But, just to piggyback on your last question to Mike, with respect to whether this is price fixing in the market, let's say that we had a market. If we had a market for pharmaceutical drugs, first of all, we would have very clear pricing information so that there could be price competition. We would have, direct transactions between the purchasers and the sellers of these products. That is not what we have in the pharmaceutical market. What we have is neither free nor a market. So while it's true that in a actual free market, price fixing by the government can lead to all sorts of market distortions and scarcity, what we're actually seeing is that consumers are getting absolutely raped and pillaged across the fruited plain with drug prices that are so over the top. I work with, healthcare sharing ministries, and they are having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for like one cancer drug. There's a cancer drug called Keytruda, which I've seen cost $100,000 per dose, and people have to be on it for life and get it every 6 weeks. Meanwhile, you can get that same drug in another part of the country for $10,000, for $9,000, or you can import it from Canada for pennies on the dollar. So this is extremely distorted market and price fixing. We are the government is the absolute biggest payer in this market. Half of all healthcare is paid for by taxpayers at the federal, state, or local level. And it's time for us to start using that market power.
And Katie, before we go here, is there any sort of a deeper issue here in the healthcare system, or just the overall health of Americans that extends beyond just drug prices or price fixing or everything we've been talking about so far?
You've absolutely hit on some of the serious root cause issues here. And I love how Secretary Kennedy, when he's asked, how do you lower costs of healthcare? He says, need less healthcare. So to the extent that we have a healthier population, we are the sickest, fattest, saddest, most infertile, overtreated, medicated population in all of human history. And so to the extent that we could even make a 5% dent in that chronic illness rate, we would have a dramatic cost savings. So I really appreciate the MAHA movement to make America healthy again, being led by the secretary at HHS and all the agency heads like FDA and NIH. And I'm encouraged that the president is trying to get some of these costs down through kind of the supply side of healthcare, but the demand side for healthcare is equally, if not more important, and what we all really want. None of us really want to need healthcare and expensive drugs. We want to not need healthcare or expensive drugs. That's our real goal. So I think it's very well worth putting resources for the first time ever into achieving that goal, which is really our priority of the American people.
All right, Katie Talento, great having you on. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And in Texas today, lawmakers in both the House and the Senate recognizing the spiritual group Falun Dafa. In separate resolutions, the legislature recognized May 13th, 2025 as Falun Dafa Day. Here's State Senator Angela Paxton, sponsor of the resolution.
Practitioners of Falun Dafa strive to attune their lives to the universal qualities of truth, compassion, and forbearance. I met with members of the Falun Dafa community in my district office during my first session, as these individuals shared stories of their friends and their family members who had been imprisoned in China and tortured through the despicable practice of forced organ harvesting.
Falun Dafa, also known as Falun Gong, is a spiritual practice rooted in ancient Chinese culture and Buddhist traditions. It's practiced by millions of people in more than 100 countries all around the world. Now, it was first publicly introduced in China on May 13, 1992. Since 1999, the practice has been banned in China due to its growing popularity, which had reached around 100 million participants in China before the suppression began. Paxton had this to say about that suppression.
The qualities of truthfulness and compassion and forbearance. These are human qualities. They are the best in all of us. And you know, it is an atrocity of the highest degree that these qualities would be attacked, as they have been by the CCP.
Paxton said the Senate has previously passed laws against forced organ harvesting and that the Senate and the House stand with Falun Dafa practitioners. The Senate resolution states that practitioners of the faith are an important part of the diverse cultural fabric of Texas. Lawmakers thought it was fitting on this anniversary to recognize the practice and its members for their devotion to peace and freedom. Coming up, Russia and Ukraine are scheduled to hold direct talks for the first time since the start of the war. What President Trump says about the presence of American officials and the disagreements which have to be resolved. Stay with us.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
Stay tuned to get a free month of home warranty protection. Tired of searching for contractors when your home appliances and systems break down, only to leave you stuck with a huge repair bill and shoddy repairs? Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and appliance breakdowns could cost thousands.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way.
I would recommend anyone who is listening to this to call Choice Home Warranty up. It eliminates the anxiety, frustration, and it saves you money.
Don't let an appliance or home system break the bank, leaving you stressed. Call Choice Home Warranty before that happens and get your first month free. Plus, call in the next 5 minutes and we'll give you free limited roof leak coverage. That's a $70 value, free. Just call now.
No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. I trust Choice Home Warranty with my home, and you should too.
Year after year, Choice Home Warranty is recognized as the nation's top home warranty and has thousands of 5-star reviews from real homeowners. Experience real budget protection and call Choice Home Warranty now.
Stop throwing money down the toilet chasing contractors. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Don't wait another minute. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. That's over $100 in savings. This offer won't last long. Call now to lock in your rate and save big.
Call 800-216-9114, 800-216-9114.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. And with your help, together we can end hunger. Join the movement at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Welcome back. The Agricultural Secretary says she wants to see food standards regulations aligned between the United States and the United Kingdom. Britain has in the past rejected some U.S. produce over concerns of low food standards, but these concerns could soon be met and then overcome. Here's NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson from London.
Agriculture is a key part to the US-UK trade deal. Britain has said it will not lower its food standards, which has been a key entry barrier for US-reared meats, such as hormone-treated beef and chlorinated chicken. While on a visit to London, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins said she'd like to see the US and the UK align more closely on food standards regulations. US farmers can use disinfectants such as chlorine washes to remove bacteria that may have infected chickens during rearing and slaughter. Critics say it is a cheap way to compensate for or mask poor hygiene and low animal welfare standards.
Well, let's first talk about chlorine chicken. I think that is a narrative in your country that perhaps we have not done a good enough job pushing back on. Only about 5% of our chicken in America is actually treated that way with the chlorine. So we have moved over the last decade completely away from the quote chlorine chicken. So I think that's a really important myth to dispel.
Meanwhile, on hormone-treated beef, these synthetic hormones encourage fast weight gain so cows can be sent to slaughter quicker. British agriculture charity The Soil Association says the hormones present some human health concerns as well as questions around animal welfare. Rollins said America has decades of research to show hormone beef is safe, but she also suggested the US market can move away from producing it.
Our agriculture producers, our cattle producers, etc., obviously are constantly watching what the markets look like. And if the markets are calling for a specific type or they have more opportunity somewhere, then I think that we potentially do see some movement in the market.
Trump suggested last week that Health Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. could implement higher health and environmental standards for US agriculture, saying Kennedy is probably heading towards the British system of standards. Rollins said the US-UK trade deal marked the first of many steps. She said American pork, poultry, seafood, rice and specialty crops are now on the front line for trade with the UK. British farming and food sector leaders have previously urged the UK government not to sacrifice British agriculture to seal the US trade deal. British Environment Secretary Steve Reed said the deal means UK beef farmers will now have exclusive access to the world's largest consumer market, adding that the deal will protect Britain's farmers and secure the UK's food security. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Russia and Ukraine are scheduled to hold direct talks for the first time since the start of the war. President Trump now says Secretary of State Marco Rubio will join the negotiations as well, but it's not clear yet who will represent Kyiv and Moscow. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the latest on those peace efforts.
Talks are being held in Turkey later this week, probably on Thursday, and they could produce some pretty good results. Our people are going to be going there. Marco's going to be going there.
President Trump on Tuesday announcing that Secretary of State Marco Rubio will join peace talks in Turkey on Thursday. Russia and Ukraine agreed to hold direct talks for the first time since the start of the conflict over 3 years ago. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will only join the talks if Russian President Vladimir Putin will be there too.
If Putin will not come, or if ceasefire will not be supported by Russians, by Putin exactly, by him. So it's been only one thing, that Russia is not ready for any kind of negotiation.
Also on Tuesday, a Kremlin spokesman was asked if Russia already announced who will attend the meeting.
No, as soon as the president sees fit, we will announce it.
Last week, Western allies, including the US, have called for an unconditional 30-day ceasefire starting Monday. Ukraine agreed, but Russia never committed to the truce, which creates another obstacle. Ukraine says a ceasefire must be in place in order to hold peace talks. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
An Israeli-American soldier held hostage for more than 19 months in the Gaza Strip was reunited with his family at a hospital in Tel Aviv last night. The Hamas terror group said it released Adon Alexander as a goodwill gesture toward the Trump administration. Oh, yeah. Adon Alexander was the last living American hostage left in Gaza. His parents flew to Israel yesterday. Alexander is a native of Tenafly, a suburb of New York City. He moved to Israel in 2022 after high school and enlisted in the army. Hamas terrorists seized him from his military base after he volunteered to stay there over the Jewish Sabbath. The Alexander family urged the Israeli government to continue efforts to free all of the hostages, a plea that other families have echoed since the Hamas announcement on Sunday. Continuing with the freed hostage, Adon Alexander, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with him and Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff by phone today.
איך אתה מרגיש, עידן? איך אתה מרגיש?
בסדר, חלש, אבל לאט לאט.
כן.
לאט לאט נחזור
חזרת?
כל עניין של זמן.
כן. Steve.
Hi, Mr. Prime Minister.
Hey, you have one brave Israeli soldier there who's also a champion of America and Israel together. And we're very, very happy and very grateful to the help that you and President Trump gave us.
And Mr. Prime Minister, I've told Adon and his family everything that you have done to make this possible over the last several days. It was a tense negotiation and it was critical. How you allowed the negotiations to operate.
The Israeli Health Ministry said today that multidisciplinary teams will take care of released Israeli-American hostage Alexander and his family. The head of the General Medical Division says it is clear that the terrorist organizations are denying hostages essential medical treatment, holding them in inhuman conditions. He called the conditions deeply concerning. And coming up, May 13th is International Falun Dafa Day. This year, the day honors 33 years since the mind-body system was first made public. A look at some of the parades and events held across the U.S. and all around the globe after the break.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude. Yay. Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
Thanks for staying with us. Today marks a special anniversary of a peaceful meditation practice that embodies beauty, tradition, faith, and resilience. May 13th is International Falun Dafa Day. This year, the day honors 33 years since this mind-body system was first made public. The event is celebrated worldwide as an opportunity to share Falun Dafa's guiding principles, the message of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Here's a look at some of the parades and events that have been held across the U.S. and all around the globe.
Practitioners of Falun Dafa, also known as Falun Gong, in the UK, Germany, Australia, and many others held public celebrations for World Falun Dafa Day.
The exercise movements are peaceful, kind and soothing, very balanced. It's a good exercise for both mind and soul.
For me, it's important to hold activities like this. People need peace and tolerance. This exercise system could help them in that regard.
I think if everyone was to practice Falun Gong meditation and exercises, the country would undoubtedly be a much better place.
I've been very impressed by the way practitioners live out the values of truthfulness, compassion and forbearance, particularly given the really severe pressure and persecution that they face in China.
Last week, thousands of people paraded through the streets of Manhattan in New York City. Vibrant floats, dragon dances, exercise demonstrations, and marching bands lit up 42nd Street, despite the rain.
Falun Dafa taught me the concept of looking inside myself to improve myself. And this looking inside and measuring myself with the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance has really helped me to improve as a person. My growth has been exponential. It has been amazing.
Falun Dafa originated in China back in 1992. The mind and body practice includes both slow meditative exercises and 3 guiding principles aimed at improving one's morality. Those are truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. The system became widely popular across China, with many touting improved health and mental well-being. But in 1999, the Chinese Communist Party launched a campaign to eliminate the practice. Chinese leaders were fearful that Falun Dafa was inspiring Chinese citizens toward faith and free thinking, values which directly go against communist ideology. In the more than 2 decades that have followed, those who refuse to give up their faith have been imprisoned, tortured, and even killed. Minghui.com, a website that reports on Falun Dafa information, has confirmed that thousands of practitioners have died due to the persecution. The true number, concealed by the Chinese regime's censorship, is believed to be far higher. Despite the persecution, which continues today, Falun Dafa has spread to millions around the world, and practitioners continue to persevere and raise awareness in the face of adversity.
world's oldest restaurant is celebrating 300 years in business. In the heart of Madrid, the eatery takes diners back in time. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on what's on the menu.
This is Botín. The restaurant in the Spanish capital of Madrid is celebrating 300 years of fine dining. Known for its suckling pig, the attraction draws tourists, celebrities, and world leaders from around the globe.
My mom, Chloe, she did the research and wanted to make it part of our family vacation here, and so really excited to get to delve into the history of the restaurant and kind of get a real authentic experience of Spain.
Botín was first opened by a French chef, Jean Botín, and later run by his nephew. Back then, customers brought their own ingredients, and the kitchen cooked them.
That is the oldest continuously working restaurant or operating restaurant in the world, yes. You know, we talked about how it's been only passed through 2 families only, right? That they only restore things, they don't renovate, they don't redecorate. So it's like jumping back in time.
Restaurant owner Jose Gonzalez explains how his establishment earned a Guinness World Record.
It's the oldest in the world because the Guinness World Record says so, based on 4 conditions. The first, it has been operating continuously. The second, in the same location. The third, with the same name. And the fourth, with the same activity.
One of Botín's most prized features is its wood-fired oven. Made of graphite and brick, it's never gone cold. Even during COVID lockdowns, staff kept the fire alive. Gonzalez describes what draws diners.
They come attracted by the history. I understand that especially back in the day, this was spread by word of mouth, which is impressive. We've had it for 60 years. We've never done advertising, nor do we decorate the walls with photos of the celebrities who have visited, which are hundreds that have passed through here, like in many places.
Ernest Hemingway helped make a name for Botín in the 1920s. The renowned American writer mentions the restaurant in his first novel, The Sun Also Rises, and his nonfiction work on bullfighting, Death in the Afternoon. Over the years, Botín has welcomed prominent visitors.
Well, many big personalities like Ava Gardner, for example. When she was filming The Barefoot Contessa, she would come here too. And indeed, barefoot, she would start dancing on top of a table. Frank Sinatra, a lot of singers and personalities from that time also passed through here.
Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Coming up, the health department announces a review of the nutrients required to be in baby formula. That and more in the next hour. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure in my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
I'm Jonathan Lawson.
If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. On the first day of his Middle East